get my, all right. Okay. Holly and I have been chatting, but we've decided to record this conversation because, well, for a lot of reasons, but so thank you for tuning in. Anybody that's watching this in the future and joining us in this now moment. Holly is a fellow light worker and healer and human that does amazing work and has awesome energy. And I just thought it'd be fun to share some of the things that we've been talking about, because it's funny, as we've discussed, as we share our journeys, what we're experiencing with each other, right? It's about recognizing that we all have things that we're processing, things that we're going through in our lives. And especially if you're in the realm, we could call it, of being a healer as a profession, if we want to label it as such. All of us are healers, all of us are, but we go through things that are a little different sometimes than what others might be going through that aren't necessarily aware of those abilities, right? So we were talking about activations and some of the things that Holly's gone through recently physically, and I've gone through them years ago too, but not in the same way. And also just about the different styles and tools that we have available to us. And I thought maybe if you're cool with that, we could just start talking about a little bit about what you've been experiencing physically. Not necessarily the whole story, but just a little bit about, especially recently, and you were saying you have to be very, I think acceptance was the word you used, right? So maybe we'll just kind of go in with that.
Yeah, I've been experiencing a lot of fatigue and different symptoms, but it's placed me, it's put me in a place of surrender and just feeling into different methods of healing and how to utilize what I know to do, my healing techniques, and using that to my advantage. But it has been it's been a place of, you have a lot of doubts of what's going on. And, when you're affected physically, for me, it was like I was anemic. So, it's just feeling into, okay, what are my next steps? Who should I go and see about this? What's right for me? What feels right in the moment? And just allowing that process to happen.
Yeah.
And, really for me, it was like my life force was drained out of me. And so that can be scary. But, when you feel into it and you know that you're being guided to certain situations and having to process certain things and integrate certain energies, you just go with it. And then you come up on that high again and you move forward.
Well, I thought it was really fun too, because we were talking about, one of the things is I just wanted to point out, if you don't mind, you're vegan. So I do think it's important to talk about that just briefly, because, and let me just back up. This isn't just about healers or people that do this for profession or light workers or channelers or any of that. But the reason I brought that into the mix is partly because that's what you do, but also because as people that do exchange energy with others consciously, it's important for us to be even more conscious of where we're getting our energy from, if we're feeling energized, for what depletes our energy and what doesn't. And maybe that's kind of where I wanted to take this conversation, organically, of course. But part of that is, you'd mentioned, you're vegan. And I know when I did my vegan, I'm not vegan, but I do primarily eat mostly vegetables. But for me, I got sick. I got really sick. So you've now kind of learned how to balance that out, and you're taking iron supplements. And I really think that's valuable, because I think sometimes people go a certain route because they're guided to, right? Whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually, of course, it's all connected, but then they may not be understanding that you have to look at the bigger picture. And so you had to then work through that and find your balance in order to support, right, your choices about your diet.
Well, that, and I feel like I mean, I was vegetarian since I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I made that choice then, and I feel like that was, I mean, it was just all about animals and my connections with animals, and it just
Yeah.
didn't feel right to, you know, to eat meat anymore. That was
Sure.
my choice. But yeah, the being vegan and eating that way, it was maybe a few years back that I changed course.
Mm.
But again, I was guided, and the process of what that looked like, with eating different. I mean, I didn't really eat that differently, but cutting out like cheese and,
Yeah.
cutting out dairy
Sure.
is addictive. And that plays into the energies in your body. So you're
Yeah.
breaking patterns, addictive patterns, processing that, different timelines come up because
Yeah.
of that. And just going through all these different cleanses, I didn't necessarily like seek out a cleanse, but because of what was happening in my body, it was a natural course.
Mhm.
I was guided, to do certain things, take different supplements along the way, work with a medical medium,
Yeah.
um, versus, going to the doctor. But it wasn't like I had the answer right
Yeah.
away, and it didn't. It was part of my path to be completely um, incapacitated, basically.
Oh, so that's something to talk about too, because you've had a really difficult journey physically. But what I wanted to, so I'm just making the connections here
Yeah.
because for me, I've also gone through some physical, and I think that's important to consistently talk about.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons we're talking about this, other than just having a conversation, which is nice to be able to share. It's nice to be able to share our experiences that we're going through because not only is it important for our connection as humans, not only is it important for our support system in the community of empaths, healers, psychics, channelers, whatever we want to label what it is that all of us in that type of community do, but we can then bring that forward to somebody else who may not be conscious or consciously aware that they have those gifts and abilities. And that's a whole other conversation. But our bodies and supporting what it needs is so important right now. And I mean, we didn't really,
And
I'm,
listening to your body.
yes.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, you don't have to, but for me, it was important to really feel into what my body was asking of me.
Yeah.
And, I'm a channel, so I'm listening to what my guidance is and what next steps to take to help support my body. But it's the knowing then too of it's okay. This is part of the process. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable, but and it really sucks. It
Yeah.
just, and if you're out of work for a certain time, well, that plays a part of how you feel, in your root chakra, your
Mhm.
stability. Are you financially supported?
Mhm.
It can become really like you're working on your shadow stuff.
Yeah.
I had to work through a lot of shadow.
Yeah. I would like to add to that too. For me, from my perspective, I see it as shadow, but I also just see it as part of, it's not necessarily all shadow.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a balance there, but
Yeah.
it was for me facing myself and my fears.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of shadow work for me,
Yeah.
but it was also then reaching for those light moments.
Yeah. And
And
I thought that was valuable too. We had kind of discussed as healers. And
Mhm.
again, we are all healers and we all have these potentials, but some of us have different gifts and abilities that come more naturally to us, right? And so it's recognizing and listening to, when you said listening to your body, like, I just want to clarify because I know what it sounds like to you, but if you could share, what does that mean for you? Like, do you hear, do you see, is it like, for me, before I started hearing through Claire, I use it all. But
Mhm.
for me, it was more through synchronicity. And then I listened to the synchronicities and then I was like, oh, that's showing up for me. Maybe that's something I need to pay attention to. But your clear channel, how is it that you get that information about your body specifically?
Now my body is literally speaking to me, so I can hear, like these are the foods that you should buy to help support your body at this time. You know,
Okay.
I check in and say, hey, you know, what am I eating for breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
But I can feel it. It's not even that I have to really check in. It's more of, I can literally just feel and sense this is the food.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, okay, well, I normally have cereal, so I'm going to have cereal again and have a pattern of eating cereal every day.
Oh
It's
yeah. I love that you're bringing that up.
it's more of, where am I feeling like, am I going to the refrigerator? I'm going to the refrigerator. Okay. What does my body need right now? So like this morning, I had plant protein and a banana.
Mhm.
Well, that's not a usual breakfast for people, you know,
Yeah.
like plant protein of, um, you know, like they call it chicken tenders.
Sure.
But, you know, it's just stuff like that where you have to realize, you know, it's not what you're maybe used to eating, and you just kind of have to go with that.
So you
So,
just brought up so many valuable points. I went into all these different places because when I was really sick, I want to just go backwards and say, I don't think I was sick just because I decided to become at that time a vegan. That only lasted, by the way, for me for about 6 months. I am not a vegan and I'm not truly a vegetarian. I don't know what you call it, but I do eat seafood primarily. And
you
there's,
eat
and it,
what your body needs.
exactly. And I really feel it's important because I do feel that there's pressure from certain areas of that pattern of this is what you need to eat because this is the right way to go. And by the way, this will segue into what we were talking about earlier about this facilitator. We've talked a little bit about removing certain having to go to this healer because you have this problem, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
Mm.
Part of what you're describing is being present. Like you said, I'm going to the refrigerator. I now am aware that I'm not just mindlessly doing something because I'm in a pattern of, or I have to be keto. So this is what I'm going to have every morning. It's more of that listening to your body and recognizing, this is what I think I want. Now, Holly's done a lot of the work of
Yes.
cleansing because you can have parasites that do control your gut brain and cause you to have cravings that are not good for you. But that's something that, Holly, you've really had to go through so that now you know when you're being told or guided something, it's coming from your own inner knowing and not those little parasites that are.
You talk about parasites, and not to go too far down the hole about the rabbit hole about this one, but attachments, you know, can play a huge part, and they have on my journey. And in the beginning, for me to kind of decipher what way to go, I used a pendulum. And I know others, you know, use that too. But attachments, entities, if you want to call them, I prefer using attachments now.
Sure.
You know, they can affect the pendulum as well. So you have to be very clear before you actually start eating the food or whatever you're doing. You have to, I don't want to use have to, but get into a place where you feel clear, really clear. And I say that, but at one point I felt really clear, but yet there was still an attachment.
Sure.
So it's, you know, it's tricky at times, but it's trusting. It's really trusting that it's okay. Even if you make this decision, you know, if you take this path, you're still going to be led in the right, you know, the right direction and what's meant for you.
And it's also, that's back to this, not necessarily a right or a wrong.
Yeah.
It can sometimes be that you had, you know, I had to go through process of elimination. You know, I had gone to the doctor, and I always say whenever I'm working with someone, or even just when we're talking about this, I always say, go to your doctor, get your blood work done, at least have that under your belt. Like you knew that you were anemic, or you knew you were low on iron.
Like a base, something to go off
Correct.
of. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And you could do that through a holistic doctor as well. They can get your blood done and see where your vitamin levels are low. But I like to do that not only just for peace of mind, because then I'm like, okay, now I know I have that base. And if anything goes wrong from here, something else is happening that I'm out of alignment on. So that's where you can use that logical And then from that baseline, you can then say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm sensing. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm craving, those kinds of things. Sometimes when we have those cravings, it's because we need those things. For me, I don't necessarily crave meat very often, but every once in a while I'm like, oh, I'm low on protein. And I might go for a plant protein snack, or I might not. It just depends. And I think sometimes our bodies are unique to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important for us to follow our own inner guidance and not necessarily follow the leader of whatever that's supposed to look like according to them. And then that also goes to what we were talking about with healing work. So that was something, we had kind of been talking about some things that we've been seeing recently, and Holly brought up, and I had seen it too, of people out there saying, well, this is what you need because you can't do it without this. Mm-hmm. And fill in the blanks for whatever that is, right? We're not going to necessarily, but I'm noticing more and more, it's kind of the same theme. What are you putting in your body? Well, what kind of healing work do you need? So let's say attachments, for example, we could call those entities, we could call them parasites. For me, I just look at it as a type of energy that has been created through a particular frequency or vibration that then expresses itself in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so if we have something that we haven't necessarily healed, right, or cleared or integrated is the word I like to use, then it can be helpful to have someone assist you. But that was something you brought up about empowerment. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, where is the empowerment? How are we empowering each other and ourselves? I don't know if you want to comment on that a little bit too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to give the example of what I had seen was about curses. Mm-hmm. And, that can be triggering for people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone else to help you with that. It can be, you can ask that, from your own guidance and work in that way. But there are times, as we talked about, there are times that you're guided to certain healers to help you through that process because maybe you activate each other in a certain way. Maybe, they have a message for you that you wouldn't have received from your own guidance, whatever the reasoning. But it was that missing piece for me when I had seen that, on social media. Mm-hmm. It was, why aren't we asking the question of how can you as the individual, how can you step into your power? How can you ask for what is needed for your body to help support it in your process for the highest?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all.
Well, you had mentioned earlier too, because I was thinking about the pendulum.
Yeah.
And it's like, that can be a really great tool.
Mm-hmm. It can.
But at times it may be a little off because something else is going on in our field that's a little off.
Yep.
And so again, that's an example of using an outside tool mm-hmm. to really tell you what's going on inside, which is not wrong. It can be very helpful. But then I feel, like you've gotten to a certain point where you don't need that anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think we could talk about that. I've got goosebumps. We could talk about any of the tools, like you're very shamanic in your style of healing mm-hmm. that you utilize when you're doing sessions. What kind of tools do you use? Let's play with this for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I use a rattle. I have, so I don't know what they're called, but the little symbols.
Uh-huh. I don't know what they're called either, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I have those. I haven't used them yet in a session, but I've used them during, light language, uh-huh. For collective healing. Yeah. And I use crystals, and symbols, different symbols. And,
sure. Because you're also a Reiki healer as well.
I am a Reiki master practitioner, mm-hmm. But I've kind of just got my own thing going on, and use the different resources available and what aligns with my spirit, with my soul, and brings me joy. And we were talking about that, how, you know, everyone works in a different way, in their own way, and all is relevant, and all is beautiful. But, you know, maybe some people may not be used to certain ways of healing, and they may get triggered or have resistance to certain things.
Yeah.
I speak light language, and you know,
but you use everything. You're using your entire, you're not just using, and you have a beautiful, Holly has a beautiful voice, by the way, like a singing voice. So her light language is like so pretty. But you're not just using, you're using frequency and tones. And I'm all about the shamanic. I would like to just say briefly, there's certain words, even the word trigger, by the way, that triggers certain people. So when I say trigger, I see that as an opening. It activates a knowingness within. It's triggering a response. It's opening a response for me to then look at or feel into what that response is. And that's kind of what I refer to as a trigger. So for some people, they may not like light language. It might make them feel weird or strange. And I've had that happen. I've had people tell me a lot. But aside from that, some people will respond better to the symbols or the sound or the crystals. Some people look at crystals and go, okay, they don't do much. But part of that is, I guess where I'm kind of going with this is from the perspective of a healer, if that's what we're calling ourselves, I keep saying it over and over again, we are all the healer. Sometimes making that connection with another person, sometimes we need a little help, but sometimes it's because we're supposed to make that connection with that other person to make that connection with that other person.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I get goosebumps.
And it's playing in the energies. It's not necessarily, you know, yes, there can be something out of alignment in your body and you're needing help with that, but it's also to have fun with the experience and to meet likely another soul member, you know, and have that. And I wanted to bring up, you know, remote healing is, if, you know, a lot of times, like remote healing now, people use Zoom and video and everything. And I don't work in that way.
Yeah.
I do my communication through, like follow up through email afterwards. And I have the vibration and the frequencies come through in words to help heal and activate. And the rest of it is, you know, through feeling. You know, it's just tuning into someone's energy and them being conscious that I'm tuning into them at a certain time and just playing in that.
Yeah.
And people aren't usually, you know, they're not used to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the funny thing about this is, I mean, as any people that have been watching my videos for a while, as we share, you and Holly, you know, I do all kinds of crazy things, but ultimately crazy things, right? Crazy. It's playful and fun. And I think it's important and valuable to talk about this for so many reasons, because I feel like people are opening up more to their potential. They're activating those, you know, lower chakras are opening up and everything is coming into more alignment. People are becoming more aware of their potentials. And sometimes that brings with it back to what we're talking about in the beginning, physical discomfort, exhaustion. And sometimes it's important to be able to reach out to someone who's gone through that before, who's experienced that before. And sometimes sometimes I feel like that's part of the reason why so many of us are experiencing it, so that we can relate to each other, so that we can be in that space of compassion and understanding. And this is a sidebar, but back to the modalities, what you're bringing up that you utilize, I think it's important because I think some people are already doing what you're doing and they don't realize it, right? A lot of people are doing what I'm doing and don't realize it. And we have similar things. But part of it is about us using that discernment and feeling into what that person needs that we're working with, because It can change based on the person. And I feel like we're coming into this new place of empowering people of their own gifts and abilities. So like you said, let's say you're having a tough time and you reach out to a healer, and then we make that connection, or that person comes to you or is drawn to your energy. We could say it's a resonance, right? It's a harmonic connection. Yeah. I love the fact that you brought up that changes too.
Yeah.
Sometimes
we were talking about that, and if you feel that resonance with someone and you reach out, like you feel, okay, you have this knowing, I need to work with this person, or vice versa. If the client is, coming to you, we talked about how all of a sudden it's not in alignment, and there's, there may be dialogue leading up to a session, and then all of a sudden it changes and you don't go through with it. And that's okay too. It might be hard for the mind to understand that, but it's there to, I guess, show us maybe something that's out of alignment within our body, and having to clear that energy, having to integrate that energy.
Yeah. Also too, I think that's a really good representation of how quickly things are changing.
Yes.
Like they're shifting so much, so rapidly, that I feel that sometimes even just reaching out to that person sometimes opens that channel automatically of healing. That maybe it's because that person, like sometimes I've reached out to somebody and just by me being open to having a dialogue shifts my frequency.
Yes.
Enough. And that might be all I needed to clear whatever it is I was experiencing. And I also think it's valuable, like you were talking about, is letting go of expectations. Because I've been talking about that a lot, because I've been having that happen as well. And it's like, we want that. And I don't want to forget to talk about the energies of sometimes trusting how we feel, because sometimes we'll get to that in just a moment, but I think it's powerful right now to talk about letting go of expectations, letting go of what that relationship or healing potential might look like. But also, like you said, coming into a place of acceptance and trust.
That it's okay. And yeah, it is letting go of the expectations of how they should respond.
Yes.
And
I love that.
And it's difficult at times, because we're so programmed in that way, but it's just taking that step back and breathing and saying, like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on? What can I learn from this? What is showing up in my body maybe because of this?
Yes.
And then let it go. It's hard sometimes to let it go because the mind keeps thinking like, well, why did it happen? Why didn't they respond? But it's then keeping up, and letting it go, just keep working on that. But sorry, I got sidetracked.
It's easy to do.
I was thinking of, social media, and we were talking about that. Just by looking at different people on social media, this is coming into my awareness, and it has for a while, but you can feel a resonance with someone, but it doesn't necessarily mean you need to connect with them. For me, I'm guided to a certain person, their picture, and I look into their eyes and they activate me. And I feel that in my body because I have physical signs of when that happens. So all of a sudden it'll be, and, the breath will just come into me. And so I know something's happening. There's an exchange between, but I don't reach out to them. I don't connect with them. And then it passes. I don't know what it means. I don't dig into it. It just feels right. And I let it go.
I love that you're bringing that up, because I do feel strongly it's resonance.
Yeah.
It's connecting beyond the physical, but it's in the physical because you're having a physical response.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to bring that up too, because I know people are, like I always say, people are activating, they're coming online, they're starting to recognize things about their body. And our bodies do respond to our physical interactions and our non-physical interactions. So you've kind of honed in your skills and your abilities to know, like you said, you don't have to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, for me, that was difficult. I'm a very logical, analytical person, and I'm like the why person.
It took time to get there. And I still ask those questions sometimes,
Me too.
but I think because of all of the physical struggle that I've had to overcome, that acceptance piece is really easy for me now.
I love the fact that you said that too, because I know there's people out there going, well, why? Right? Like, why so much physical discomfort? And you just said something so valuable. Because of all of my physical discomfort that I've been through, now I can accept things easier than I ever would have had you have not experienced all of that physical discomfort.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes you more aware of is it kinesthetic, more of the physical connections that you're having when you're in session, or when you're having an interaction with somebody. It doesn't have to be a healing session. It can just be a friendship. It can be a relationship. It's all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're more tuned in, I think, because of just all of the things that go on in the body. If you're experiencing so much discomfort in different parts of the body at different times, and how to process that, it's a lot.
It is.
As you've said in, other videos, it's a lot that's going on. It's, one thing, it's, maybe discomfort in part of your body one day, and then all of a sudden it changes, and it's fine, but it really helps you tune into, especially if you're working with a client, it helps you just tune into your body, and then allow what needs to come through, and connect with beings that, that you need to, and to help that other person then through whatever they need.
Yeah. And also too, one of the things that I love talking about is that when we're working with someone else, it's working on us as well.
Yes.
So I know that's something when I do this work, I know when to shut down. I just did a video, I haven't posted it yet, with my friend Candace. And we talked a little bit about just that's a theme right now, Holly, right? Like the body. I mean, for you, it's been ongoing for years.
Yeah.
For me, it was too. And then it's kind of, now I'm in a better position. Thankfully, that's where I'm at right now. But it went on for at least 3 years for me of extreme ups and downs and physical discomfort. And I still do go through that from time to time. You had mentioned you've been getting maybe a little bit more headaches than usual. Migraines. That's something a lot of people go through, and that's a whole other topic. But one of the things I've been noticing is that's the theme, is we have to take care of our bodies, and that not only the food aspect, but that looks different for everyone. For some people, they need to ground more. For some people, Reiki might help them. For other people, they need to just sleep more. For some people, it might be a massage, or all of the above. And I'm coming back to the tools, because the tools of the healer, are infinite.
Yeah.
And so, you might have channeled messages that come through that when I say that, what I hear, and I want to talk a little bit about that intuitive aspect too, because it's kind of fun. It's like, when I say I hear, I literally hear or sense into a message that's coming through. And you're channeling, everybody channels a little differently from my perspective. Some people are trance channelers, right? Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your style, or do you have a multiple way with the channeling, specifically the messages?
I was going to say too, like, for one of my resources, big one is crystals. I use crystals all the time. And, I've gotten to a place where the crystals, I mean, you can speak with anything, anyone, any being. So speaking with the crystals, and different colors, come in, flowers, we were talking about flower energy. So you can tap into these energies. At one point, I know we hadn't brought this online to other people, but I was talking about tattoos. I have a flower tattoo and a dragon tattoo, and I'm very connected to the ascended dragons, and I work with their energy. But tattoos are portals that you can open, and you can send energy to heal the collective in that way and yourself. So there are so many different things that you can use to help heal. But yeah, I channel light language, and I work with all different beings that come through. And I do have my own YouTube channel, and it's collective healing. And different beings present themselves, and you can tell in the what is the word? The
tone or the linguistics, the sound,
the tone, the sounds, the fluctuations of
yes.
sound. Yeah. And there'll be different pitches and things. So yeah, it's been quite an experience for me to do that, and to come on board YouTube and open myself, with these gifts and be out in the public. But I wanted to bring up too, for those of us who can channel light language, my guides had me do kind of shorter recordings for myself.
Yes.
Where I have a whole list of light language topics, frequencies or activations that come through to help me clear. I have one for clearing, one for faith, confidence, just different things that they'll guide me to do at certain times that'll clear my energy. So
I love that.
It's been a fun process. And I'm sorry, but like, I don't know if we have time, but I am like holding back light language.
We could do, we could do a little light language. I just wanted to, before you forget though, or before I forget, I wanted to talk about a couple of things I think are relevant, because I just, first of all, like you brought into so many different subjects. I wanted to talk a little bit about the dragon. I want to talk a little bit about the tattoos as portals, because that is not a topic we've ever had I'm sure other people are aware of it and I've spoken about it, but one of the reasons I like to tie together the light language with what it's doing, I like to make it logical a little bit, because sometimes people hear light language and people have different opinions and perspectives about what that is. And mine is very different. I'm very open. I believe it is many different things. It isn't just one thing. It's many different things, many different dimensions, many different frequencies. And essentially, in a nutshell, it's just sound.
Yeah.
So whatever we attach to the meaning of that sound is basically what it represents for us. And I understand that it's multidimensional, but all it is, when you're in your heart and when you're sharing from your heart and you're not in a place of, you're just open to that space, that is a resonance. And then what comes through is a match to that resonance. So the reason I want to share that is because some people are starting to, and they get a little nervous. Well, you recorded your own light language that associates for you different feelings. I love that. And I have too. And it's just for you. But some people can also benefit from that. And that is a choice that they are making by choosing to listen to that sound and to tune into it with their energy. So it's all about the heart for me. It's all about that resonance and being in a place of not fear, because fear changes the whole vibration of all of it, how we perceive it and how we send it out. So that's something I really wanted to kind of address. But I love the fact that you're talking about the portals on the tattoos, because I just wanted to share from my perspective, it's a symbol. You're wearing a symbol. So as you tune into that symbol, you're utilizing it just like a Reiki symbol.
That's right. Yeah.
Just like hand signals when I do, symbols like that. It's so, because I wanted to share that because I know people watching this are going to be like, well, how can you use a tattoo as a portal? And that's what it is. It's
geometric shape. It's
geometry.
Geometry, right. And you're better, you're well-versed on that aspect more than me. But for me, it's just more feeling and knowing. So it's hard for me to explain the logical side of it.
Sure.
It's not really that logical, I wouldn't say anyway, because we're
Mhm.
talking about portals and
Yeah. Yeah.
and feeling that, a flower can open on your skin
Yeah.
and what colors are coming through. So it is very intuitive, and it's, kind of out there. But for me, it's normal.
Yeah.
It's a way that I can share my energy to heal others in the
Yeah.
collective. So, and up, that uplifts the vibration of
Mhm.
Mother Earth, and well, for
Yeah.
everybody. It's not just Mother Earth, it's everyone.
Right. Well, when you're doing that work on you, and we talked about this, we both have done cranial sacral work. And I know when I've worked on someone else, when I was just going through the workshops, I felt like someone was working on me and I'm the one working on someone else, but that's how it works. It's energy, it's reciprocation almost. And I think it's important too, just you had mentioned about the, it's not logical. But I like to say, okay, color, we're healing with colors. It's not logical, but a color is a certain wavelength.
Yes. Yep. It's frequency. So yeah, I guess it's scientific.
Yeah. And the geometry, if you look at the geometries, I just wanted to kind of comment on that too, before we go into a little light language.
Yeah.
The geometry that is in these shapes, if you've ever looked up Dr. Masaru Emoto, which I encourage everybody to do that, EMOTO, and also just cymatics. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it's CYMATICS, but basically it's resonance in sound, and what it looks like and what that resonance looks like is a geometric pattern or a shape. So what you choose to put on your body as a portal that you resonate with is providing a portal for you to work with that energy. So you, Holly, are just using that, right, as a conscious tool that you're just adding to your toolbox. And might I add, all of this, like when you're sharing the light language, for example, it's utilizing your voice. It's utilizing your sound. And so this can be a signature frequency for you, but other people just like perk up and, oh, I like that, or I don't like it. And it's not, I invite everybody to listen. If there's, some sounds, even I've used like, sound bowls, you probably used those before too. Some people don't like them. They hear the shock, the 432 hertz crystal bowl, and they're like, it's like nails on a chalkboard to them. It's not necessarily just because they have a blockage in that area, although it can be. So I know you'll agree with me on that. Sometimes it can be that, but it's also because sometimes they have a sound sensitivity. It could be something in their own system that isn't. So I just invite everybody just to be in a place of non-judgment and just a place of, just feel into it. And if it feels a certain way, we don't have to analyze it. Sometimes it's just meant to move through the system and introduce us to something we haven't heard before.
That and it brings awareness to what your body is kind of in the mood for, what it can. It's with any music.
Yeah.
Most days I can't listen to, music.
Country. No, I'm just kidding.
Vocal music.
Yes, I
can only listen to spa type music or Reiki type music. Frequencies, that's mostly what I'm able to listen to. And some days I can't listen to anything. It's just too much. I'm too sensitive to it. But other days it's like, okay, well, now your body is able to take in those vibrations and have fun with it.
And I love the fact that you're saying that some days, yes, it's kind of like going back to the people that we want to, like some days we're really tuned into something. And then another time we're like, oh, that doesn't mean that it's wrong or right.
Yeah.
It just is what it is in that moment. And that's us just being aware of where we're at. And we might want to just circle back around at a different time or never circle back around. And also I want to just invite everybody to recognize that as you do this, Holly, you're sharing all of the things that you're tapping into, which is pretty vast. And some people might not tap into something that vast, and that's okay. Everybody's got their own thing. And so for some people it's drumming, you know, it's like all of it is just vibration and sound. But I would love for you to share a little. I've been feeling, I don't know about you, but for me it's been very earth lately, lots of earth, very native kind of sounds. But I don't know, what have you been feeling into? Do you have, not that we need to label it.
No,
We don't.
well, we were bringing in the flower energy, and we were talking about fuchsia.
Yes.
Color has is around me right now, and I talk about flower energy. For me, I can only describe it as a feeling and then associate it with colors that, you know, come into my awareness. So, you know, flowers, the feeling of kindness and love and joy, and how that makes me feel inside and wanting to share that with others. So that's kind of what's coming through right now.
Okay.
But I have been working a lot on my root lately. So yes, to the earth aspect, not necessarily like ancestral tones coming through for me.
Yeah.
Whatever comes through.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I'm like holding it back.
Let's let it rip. So I'm going to say, let's maybe plan on like about a minute or so, if that's
fine, yeah.
okay. And then also I wanted to say two things, because shaman, even that word, back to shaman, can trigger certain people. People have a tendency to associate that with mysticism or magic. And I just wanted to share briefly that really is just someone who's in tune with the earth and in tune with their own potential. And they were in the villages and with our indigenous people, that was who everybody went to help them. So it's like that, our past version of a doctor, even though they didn't necessarily use, they knew the plants, they knew the sounds, they knew the earth. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, put that out there, because I think some people hear these things and they're like, oh, that's, and not all light language is galactic, by the way.
Correct. Yeah.
It can be.
Elemental, angelic, you know,
it's just
different
communication.
tones.
Yeah. So I'll just let it rip. So I'm just going to kind of close my eyes and tune in.
Tarawaya, ea teria tarawaya ta, ea teria tara o. Aria rea teria tara kotoro, ya tara ya teria terikia tara kotoro ko kaya rea tarawaya tara ya tere I shua rea tara kia shua ta ya te e atoa ya tara ya tere e ia tere kia tara kotoro o ko aya tere I o o a a I o a a e e a a a a a fairies, the fairies. Laughter, 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 and the flower energy. Ooh,
So fun. I love the fact sometimes you just have to be willing to laugh at yourself.
It was so much like a buildup coming through.
Yeah. Well, you have the ability to hit those tones.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so as you were doing it, I just want to share, I love it because I started laughing because it's fun.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a scene from like, you know, Sleeping Beauty or Snow White when all the flowers come out and they're like, the birds are going through the air. And
Right.
this, I love that you brought this energy through in this way because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we think that it's, you know, I do like very guttural tones sometimes and very low, but there are a lot of times that I'm just like high pitches, and toning is also light language.
Yeah.
It's just not necessarily put together in a letter formation.
Yeah. I call it angelic harmonics. That's my toning that, you know, I offer, but light language, you know, it's just, you know, for my services, I call it like technology activations.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like anything really comes through.
Yeah.
Besides
I love
the tones. Yeah.
Right. I love the fact, I mean, I know we've spoken before too, and you've done like the dolphin collectives coming through, the horse collective. You know, it's funny. I actually had a girl I listened to, actually, I think it might've been Z. So my friend, Candace and Jess, we were just talking. So I can't remember her name. She's on YouTube, but I listened to her years ago. And she was doing a hummingbird.
Ooh, yeah.
And this was before I'd ever heard. I thought it was ridiculous. And I loved it at the same time. I was just like, and she was really, I think it was her. I'm not sure if it was Z or not. I think I follow her on YouTube, but my point is, she was bringing through this hummingbird. And I was just like, what is this? This is ridiculous. And at the same time, I was just like, this is awesome. Like it was, I was like, and this was years ago, maybe when I was first starting to have light language coming through. And my sounds were very different than your sounds. And you can hit these notes that literally bring in this, it's almost like I was seeing light, like a burst of light.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll see, go ahead.
When you tune into animals, I've had it happen where, you know, I'm meditating and I'm connecting with the dolphin collective. And then all of a sudden sound will come out like them. And these, you know, weird sounds, I'm just like laughing about it because I sound like a dolphin right now. And, you know, but it activates and it heals you, you know, and it's something like, you know, I'm working on my heart. There's a lot of heart healing going on right now.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, I call that too, you said technology and activation. So what you're doing is it's this, it's almost like a conduction, an orchestra going through the body that's literally moving. It's a movement.
Like technology. Yeah.
So I look at this and I think this is a beautiful moment. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I mean, I know there's so much more, you guys. Holly could keep going and she could bring in so many collectives right now. Maybe we'll do that at a different time and kind of, just for fun, you know, and just to share with everyone, lighten up, right? It doesn't have to sound a certain way. And I want to come back to the empowerment thing that you brought up earlier. If I hear people, and you do too, and that can be triggering for us because we know, triggering not necessarily in a bad way, but we start to go, wait a minute, that just doesn't feel right. We don't need tools outside of us or other healers to fix us.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
Can it be fun and helpful and extremely expansive to work with other healers and tools? Absolutely. I was thinking of like red light therapy, and I listen to a lot of Dan Winter, and he has the what is it called? Not phase conjugation. He has the imploder and also other tools with plasma. I encourage everybody to go to fractalfield.com all the time and check out all of his tools. So there's so many tools out there, you know, there's this whole thing on the internet about all the med beds, but all of this is within us. And you're just using simple, by you moving the energy in that way, it's a ripple effect, because what we're sitting in is a field of plasma or ether. I know those are two different things, but let's not box it in. And what that's doing is it's sending out through this entire field that we are all sitting within. And I do feel too, like you'd mentioned something really cool earlier about sometimes you bring in sounds or collectives that other people haven't heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really valuable too, because there's this idea of this is, oh, that's not real. This isn't right. Well, who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Yeah, I've had beings come, you know, and I worked with a spiritual artist. She had no idea what was coming through until the time it happened. And I had an image that was given to me. And when I saw what she brought through was pretty much the same thing that I was seeing. So
Ooh, I love that.
we were guided to work with each other. And then, then I received more information about these beings. So
Yeah.
it's, you may or may not resonate with it, and that's okay.
I love the fact that you brought that up too, because when I work with people too, I'm not always seeing galactic beings. I'm not always seeing past lives. Sometimes I do see animals and colors and things like that. And sometimes that's a representation of a frequency or collective that particular animal is holding. So like dolphins and whales are higher frequencies than maybe perhaps a worm. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. That's not a hierarchy thing. And sometimes we might want to bring through, I know the elementals have come in for me because we've kind of forgotten about the elementals.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes these beings are like excited, like, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I hear they're paying attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play. And so
they're ready. We're ready for them to be seen. We weren't at the right frequency for them to come through and to play in that way.
Yeah.
So, man.
I love it. So it's so much fun. So thank you. And I mean, we could keep going because we have so much more. Like we just hit the tip of the iceberg, but I have to run. You have to run. We'll end on that note. Don't hang up just yet, but I want to just say thanks for Holly for playing. And I'm going to share all your stuff, and then I'll share it on the link as well on this channel. So it'll be in the bottom under the comments, or just send it all to me and I'll copy paste it.
Description, yeah.
Then it's easier. So that'll be on below on this video that I share, wherever I share it, I'll share it on YouTube and Facebook. And I will just end on that note, to be continued. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for playing. Namaste.
Thank you.
End.